Check.
Or this. All right, good evening and welcome to the Thursday, June 9th, 2022 regular meeting of the Walnut Creek Planning Commission. At this time, I'll ask Commission Secretary Andy Smith to please call the roll.
Certainly. Commissioner Needing?
Here.
Commissioner Lezak?
Here.
Commissioner Pickett?
Here.
Commissioner Strongman?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Vice Chair Ward?
Here.
Chair Reiser?
Here,
You're all here unanimously.
we are all here. Very good. Next up on our agenda is the consent calendar. And seeing no consent calendar, we will move on to the next item, which is public communication. The public communication portion of the meeting is reserved for comment on items not on the agenda. Under the Brown Act, the commission cannot act on items raised during public communications, but may respond briefly to statements made, questions posed, request clarification, or refer the item to staff. I'll ask if anybody nobody in person, nobody in the chamber, so any members online.
Well, there's one attendee online. I'll ask if they're interested in providing comment that they press the raise hand button, although I do believe they're actually here for the agendized item. And I do not see them putting up their hand, so we have no public comment.
Very good, thank you. So the next item on our agenda is the public hearing. So we'll start by asking if any members of the commission have had any ex parte communications related to items on this evening's agenda. Any commissioners, ex parte communications? I will note that I had a conversation earlier this week with David Bolby, who is a consultant to the applicant. It was on an unrelated issue, but he did mention that he had something before this body and asked if I had any questions on it, to which I said no. So that was the extent of my ex parte communications. So with that, we will introduce project Modern Animal Vet, conditional use permit, application Y22044, and ask Brittany Lenore to give our presentation. Brittany?
Get the presentation set up. 1 second. Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Brittany Lenore, I'm an assistant planner here with the Community Development Department, the Planning Division specifically. This project is a conditional use permit application, and it is for Modern Animal, which is a veterinary office at 1360 Mount Diablo Boulevard. Okay. So Modern Animal is proposing to establish a veterinary office in an existing 4,965 square foot tenant space on the corner of Mount Diablo and North Broadway. It's formerly a Chase Bank location. The site is in the Central Retail Zoning District, which requires a conditional use permit for veterinary service uses. The site follows the general plan land use, or general retail land use designation of the general plan, and that's intended for one-stop shops that rely on customers arriving by auto and provide on-site parking. So Modern Animal is proposing to establish a veterinary office for service and care of cats and dogs. They'll provide standard veterinary care, including exams, surgeries, and dental services during their 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. office hours, and will not have any overnight boarding. This application is for the use permit only, and so any exterior alterations, including window treatments or signage, will be reviewed separately. So the Planning Commission must make all standard conditional use permit findings to allow a veterinary office, in addition to a central retail zoning regulation, which prohibits boarding of animals except for convalescent or medical examination. So this project will meet the use permit findings and additional finding. There will be no boarding of animals at the site. Modern Animal will not board. Any pets that do require overnight observation will be referred to an animal hospital. In addition, Modern Animal will meet the intent of the general plan, the general retail land use designation by establishing a customer-based office use with sufficient on-site parking. Due to its proximity with the adjacent pedestrian retail district across North Broadway, there's opportunities also for customers to interact with that district. In addition, their pet cages are going to be oriented away from all exterior building walls and windows, so that'll reduce any potential noise impacts. So as such, staff recommends a move to adopt the proposed resolution to approve a conditional use permit filed under application number 22-044 to establish a veterinary office at 1360 Mount Diablo Boulevard. So I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. At this time, we'll ask if there are any commissioner questions. Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing and tell the applicant that he or she has 15 minutes to give a presentation or an introduction.
I'll keep it very brief. Thanks, Brittany. So Modern Animal, obviously, like our business, it's more or less a modern take on the typical old-fashioned veterinary clinic, which are usually very stale, very cold sort of places. What we're doing is implementing more of like a warmth, vibrant type of space, and that's certainly what we want to do here at Walnut Creek. Obviously, during the pandemic, 23 million American households got a pet, so consequently, the demand for veterinary clinics is just huge right now. So what we are seeing is a huge demand at each location we open currently. So we're opening clinics, and within no amount of time, we're finding that the demand is just through the roof. Each clinic that we're opening at the moment is strategically determined with an emphasis on the real estate that can be transformed into a modern version of what all vet clinics should be, which is a space that prioritizes warmth, light, transparency, and comfort for pets and humans alike. Historically to date, Modern Animal has attracted a younger, digitally native pet owner. The customer feedback online to date from Google reviews has been overwhelmingly positive, with 5-star reviews across the board at all open clinics. We are sure Walnut Creek will be yet another successful clinic that will benefit the community as a whole and drive a lot of traffic to the Walnut Creek region. Thank you.
Thank you much, appreciate that. Back to the commissioners, any questions of the applicant? Well, quiet commission tonight, okay. At this time, we will ask if there's any members of the public who wish to provide public comments at this time. Anybody online, anybody in the chamber?
And again, I would ask anybody online if they wish to provide public comment that they please press the raise hand button so that we may bring you in. And I'm not seeing that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So typically at this time, we would bring any questions back to the applicant if there were any questions based on what was said online or in person, and that hasn't happened. So we will bring it back to the commission for any kind of questions, considerations, comments, or perhaps a motion.
And Mr. Chair, may I?
Please.
Something that came to mind as during Brittany's presentation, something I should have caught earlier, this is actually a good thing, so nobody shouldn't be afraid, is I noticed that their business plan, which is labeled as Exhibit B, indicates that their hours of operation will be from, I think it's 8 till 6. And there's a proposed condition of approval, number 1, actually, saying that they would operate in substantial compliance with said business plan. I would ask that the commission perhaps consider allowing some future flexibility on the part of the business owners to change their hours, as necessary as their business needs may need, and perhaps allow that to be at the discretion of the community development director, so that if they wanted to stay open until, say, 7 in the evening, it wouldn't have to come back to the planning commission. Just like to float that out there as perhaps something that you may wish to consider, and I would assume the applicant wouldn't be opposed to that, but having just come to mind right now, I haven't had a chance to go and confer with them. I'm thinking about staff honestly, I'm thinking about staff.
Otherwise, we would have to come back to this body just for a change of hours.
Yeah.
It's a good call. Any comment or?
I just think we should ask the applicant to confirm that they'd be interested. Or would you, do
You
you,
have to step up if you don't mind.
would you believe that the hours of your operation might be subject to change in the future?
Look, I don't think so. I think typically it's usually 8 to 6, but certainly open to the option if it's there.
I mean, I'm personally, thank you for your answer.
Appreciate that.
I personally don't have a problem with building the flexibility, and if staff believes that that's very helpful, not that we wouldn't love to see them again, but my sense is that that's the kind of detail that we would be comfortable leaving up to staff, and if they're good tenants and they don't have significant CUP violations, that we would think that would be fine. So, I mean, while this seems like a strange use for this particular location, I'm generally supportive. It seems like it would fit in, and we'd like to see a tenant in that location.
Thank you, Commissioner Lezak. Anybody else?
Yeah, I also support the application and the hours 8 to 6, and I'd also support building in some flexibility, but I'd like to define that, and maybe an hour either way, an hour earlier, an hour later. It could be, and I'm not set on that. I just think we ought to establish how much flexibility we're leaving to staff, but I think it's a good idea to build that in, so if the applicant finds that their business plan would work a little better with that flexibility, it's easier on them.
Does 7 to 7 make sense in terms of?
7 to 7 is what I would say we approve it 8 to 6, which is what they've applied for.
Correct.
And that we would add a condition that would say, or add to the conditions that, staff could approve an hour earlier or an hour later at their discretion based on whatever case is presented to them, something of that nature.
How about just a reasonable change in hours as approved by the community development director? Would that be okay? Reasonable?
Yes,
Okay.
reasonable, I like that, reasonable. Andy, you've got to be reasonable.
Thanks for bringing that up, Andy. So
And
without objection-
I do apologize. I know that's unusual for me to all of a sudden spring something on you, but it just popped into my head as something that would properly be.
That sounds like a
Good
great
thing to
idea.
include.
If nobody else has anything to say, then I'd like to make a motion to approve, uh-oh, now I lost the number. Hang on. The Modern Animal Vet CUP conditional use permit application number Y22-044 with the addition that if the applicant wants a change in the hours, a reasonable change in hours will be approved as, by the community development director.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We call for the vote?
Yes, Commissioner Needing,
Yes.
Commissioner Lezak,
Yes.
Commissioner Pickett,
Yes,
Commissioner Strongman,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ward,
Yes.
and Chair Reiser.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Good luck with your business. Welcome to downtown. And so next on our agenda is commission considerations. Are there any items for our consideration this evening?
We do not have anything on the agenda for that.
Great. And then next up is commission member and staff reports or announcements. Anybody from the commission want to announce anything or staff?
I have since I was hoping to keep this under 15 minutes, but I promise this will be quick. So when I received a large envelope ominously addressed to the City of Walnut Creek Planning Commission from WCI, which I know to be Walnut Creek Intermediate. And sure enough, I will be distributing this. I have to scan these, but I just wanted to let you know that I received a packet of things in a letter from Tamara Schultz, who's a sixth grade teacher at Walnut Creek Intermediate. It says, "Dear Planning Commission, I'm a sixth grade core teacher at Walnut Creek Intermediate. One of the last assignments after studying ancient Rome in our social studies curriculum asked the students to analyze their city's urban planning. The students spent a class period in dialogue about the good and poor planning aspects in Walnut Creek. I've attached a copy of the assignment for you to see. My students had a structure to follow for the assignment also included. The results are the letters from my students, which I have sent to you. The students shared the letters with their respective core classes. I believe they have many great suggestions, including some that directly impact their ability to access the campus each day. I hope you will enjoy their letters, and then I hope that perhaps you will contemplate their suggestions. Thank you for your time and for considering the city's young citizens' perspective. Sincerely, Tamara Schultz." And there's a lot of these here, and so what I'll plan on doing is scanning these and distributing them to each of you, but I just wanted to actually share that because that's kind of a cool thing, to be honest with you.
That is really cool. Thank you. Can't wait to read those.
And then
there wasn't a Pickett grandkid on there, was there?
I will have to take a look.
I think we have some risk of that happening, I think.
Full disclosure, Mrs. Schultz was in our wedding party.
Nice.
Small town.
And then one other item is, of course, at the last meeting, the commission forwarded or moved to forward a recommendation to the city council to move the commission meeting start times from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock. I'm working with the city clerk to get that onto a future agenda with the city council, and we'll, of course, keep you informed as to the progress of that and if they ultimately do adopt the requested change.
Fair to ask, was that under consideration by planning as well, as rumored?
Oh, I mean,
Sorry,
by DRC? I have not heard anything additional. I think it was last week's meeting, there was no items on the agenda, so the meeting was canceled. So there hasn't
okay.
been any follow-up since.
Very good. All right, this might be a record, one of the records at least. So with that, we will adjourn at 7:16. Thanks, guys.
Just 15 minutes.